I've heard the name a million times, Justin Robbins.
Awesome.
Do you know who that is?
I know of them. Yeah, I've seen them on the interwebs before.
Okay. Right there.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Sweet, huh?
Well, everyone, welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu and Athletic Director Marissa.
Hello.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You get so deep in your
What do you want me to
web
say?
surfing, you got to be Johnny on the spot. What are you looking at in there?
Right this. What am I supposed to say?
You're supposed to be ready to rock this because it's going to be a great show today.
I don't have a ring-in saying like you do.
Oh,
I just say hello.
We should make you start announcing these introductions, right? That's awesome. Hey, listeners and viewers alike, so thankful to have you here on One-on-One Live with Coach Blu. This is our weekly call-in show. Answer questions that you might have about addiction, mental health, recreation, communication, anything that might be plaguing, maybe your relationships. We'd love to help. We've got a great topic today. We're going to talk a little bit about building home teams. We've got several questions and have really kind of established a different approach and I think viewpoint on this after some experiences we've had with one of the Agents of Recovery co-hosts, Max Hall, and as he's suffered an Achilles heel injury.
Yeah.
We were talking about this kind of in depth yesterday on the Agents of Recovery podcast about the importance of having a team on your side. So we're going to talk about that today because the home team is a very crucial part of what we do on Team Addict to Athlete. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we started it, why we call it that, and ways to improve it or build it if you don't have it. But before we do all that, Marissa, as always, we want to jump in and talk a little bit about our upcoming events. We have two amazing races coming up.
Yes, we
First of all, the No One Left Behind run.
Yep. This is our team half marathon. This is kind of like a three-legged race. You find your three people and you're going to start together, finish together. The whole point is just like in recovery, we can't do it alone. So you find a team and you run the race within 15 yards of each other or 15 feet of each other from start to finish. And that is June 17th in Spanish Fork, Utah. It's only $40 to register. So it's one of the cheapest half marathons out there.
Get a cool shirt, a finisher's medal, all that, and then some. And the cool part about this is a great introduction for anyone who might be nervous about maybe you're running a half marathon.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get these families who have one crazy runner and they're trying to convince the rest of the people to run with him.
Yeah.
This is a perfect event for you because you can come out and it doesn't matter how long it takes you. There are no time limits. You'll get there when you get there.
Yeah.
And we've done this purposely for that reason, is that it doesn't matter if it takes you, 2 hours or if it takes you 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's about you getting to be able to experience what this is to have a support system, because in mental health and addiction, life in general, it's always better when we have, like what we're talking about today, a support system in play. Also, this coming September, we have our anniversary, run, our what do they call it? The annual run.
It's our,
The Addict to Athlete 5K is a proxy run, our recovery run. The proxy run basically was established to remember those who have lost their battle to addiction or mental health, or maybe even someone out there that's struggling that you want to show support for.
And also to celebrate those in recovery and those doing well. So it's
Absolutely.
kind of all three. Yeah.
And, this is a great run because of the emotional connections that are made. I've seen families heal that have come together to run proxy for a loved one. And I've seen some amazing things. This event was very big before COVID, and now we're slowly inching our way back. And so this is also a very, I would say, emotionally charged event.
Yeah.
But the benefits are so great. And this is also happening in September. What's the exact date?
So this one is September 9th. It's the second Saturday. We have been traditionally doing it on Labor Day, and I know a lot of people vacation, and that's like the end of summer. So we decided to bump it one more week, and so we're the next Saturday after.
Yeah, so it's going to be a great opportunity for you to come and connect and remember those that meant so much to you, and really bring your family with you too. It's a great way to kind of get out and experience that compassion that we have for all those who struggle.
Yeah, 5K is perfect. Anyone can do that distance. It's really not difficult, 3.1 miles. It's something you can do walking. We've had people come and have their kids come and ride little scooters and, bring their dogs. We've had, it can be a real fun and happy event together.
100%. So all of those races and other awesome, I think, content can be found on addicttoathlete.org. And if you go up to the top right corner, you'll find the tabs to register. Takes you right to the registration page. And share that page with the rest of your family. Let's get you guys out there. Love to have you come out and recreate with Team Addict to Athlete this summer.
Absolutely.
So before we really cannonball into this, let's also give thanks to our Patreon subscribers. It's because of you this podcast gets pushed out a little bit further, from the equipment that you're able to help us provide to the hosting of the podcast on the websites. Believe it or not, that stuff's not free. It costs a little bit.
Yeah.
And so with your help and support, we definitely have felt the increase of what we've been able to do behind these mics. So I want to give a special shout out and thanks to some of our Patreon subscribers and a new Patreon subscriber, as we discussed.
So we have a new Patreon subscriber. Justin Robbins is a pro
Thank
level.
you.
So thank you and welcome to the Patreon family, Justin. The other pro level is my dad, Gary Thurston. Thank you. Then our rookie levels, Sherry Polson, Earl Dyer, Wendell Wood, and Brad Waldron. Thank you, rookies. The super fans, Karen Hardy, Steve Riggs, Tracy Whitby, Jerem Thurston, Tara Butson, Holly Davies, Scott Foster, Brett Frew, Chris Williams, Sensei KP Brown, Patrick Forsyth, Brock Ellerman, and Christy Case. And last but not least, our champion level subscribers, we want to thank Shad and Freya Robison, Ron and D. Loesch, and Andrew Baird.
Thank you all
Thank you.
so much. You really have helped us increase this podcast. We couldn't do this without you. Our producer Max over here is getting a lot of neat stuff, getting ready to be pushed out there on Patreon. Thank you, Max. And so look forward to lots more content. And we are taking some deep dives on a few really sensitive topics. And so if there's anything that you'd like me to kind of help maybe push out there, please let us know. You can reach us through all the contact information through the website.
Absolutely.
So listeners, we want to talk a little bit about your support system. I've noticed something kind of silly and strange about changing of the seasons. Doesn't matter if it's summer to fall or winter to spring. It always kind of starts bringing out some interesting characteristics in people, and this is typically when people relapse. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, tons.
It's a crazy thing. I don't know if it's like the werewolf and the full moon syndrome, but it seems like the changing of the seasons also should be very, particular in how you approach, maybe just from going inside to going outside, or from going outside into the inside.
Yeah.
Something about it really does kind of spark this, this maybe sense of scarcity or maybe intrigue that gets us into some sticky situations sometimes. But as Addict to Athletes grown, we've noticed that the stronger support system you have, the bigger the home team advantage you can establish, the more likelihood that you're going to be able to survive and really strengthen your recovery through these experiences. And so obviously a play on words, the Addict to Athlete home team that we want you to establish is this in your own home. We can talk a little bit, Marissa, about why the metaphor, the home team, specifically with Addict to Athlete. We call this our home base. But the home team is something very different, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's our support system. It's not only like the environment, but it's the people and who do we bring into our life. And some of those are going to be blood relatives and some of them may not. And that's okay. It's surrounding ourselves with people that lift us.
So listeners, think of it like this. Think of your favorite sports team, whatever that might be. And for all of you guys who don't like sports, just humor us for a minute, right? Think about we'll say like the Boston Celtics, right? The Boston Gardens. There you are with like this very sacred, like ground that many people have played ball on, that like legacies have been born. And granted, they've torn the old one down and built a new one, but humor me for a minute.
Yeah.
Or like Yankee Stadium, something that's like so iconic. Wrigley Field. I love Wrigley Field. I've been there. When you build yourself a dynasty type team, you're going to start off a little slow. You're going to have some investments. You're going to have some players come in and come out. You're going to have some struggles and some bumps and bruises, but eventually things will start to become homeostatic where it can be like strengthened, and it can start working and operating well. But here's the deal. In order to create a home team, you have to have a few, some understandings on which positions people play.
Yeah.
Who are the referees? What are the boundaries? What are the spectators expected to do? What is the general manager and all the office staff?
What's everyone's job?
Absolutely. So when you think about building a dynasty team, all that stuff has to work together in order to create that atmosphere. And I love kind of the metaphor of what that looks like, because say if you're in Yankee Stadium or whatever, pick your favorite team. For me it's the Cubs. You don't let people come onto your home court or your home field and start ridiculing it, start mocking it, start tainting it with outside influence, right? You protect that. And it's because that's your home court. right?
Yeah.
Like people fight for that through game and through playing hard so that they can maintain that during playoff seasons, so they can have home court advantage, because home court advantage means what?
It's where they feel comfortable. It's where they've done their practices. It's kind of where they've been.
Their home team crowd.
Yeah. And they also have that support system of everyone that knows them. They usually have the biggest crowd, the loudest crowd, the ones that support them. It's what they know and where they feel safest. And so that's often where they perform the best.
Now, instead of a microcosm of that, I want you to kind of put it down to the micro scale, into as soon as you open that door to the threshold into your environment, that's when the game's on. That's when you now have home court advantage. Yeah. What happens on that home court, I think you should pay attention particularly to some of the situations and things that happen on your home court. We talk a lot about emotional safety. In order to have a home and a home court advantage, you've got to first and foremost have emotional safety in your home.
Yeah.
Loosely defined, what is that?
Emotional safety is a term to represent people are able to feel safe saying whatever they need to be able to express themselves. And sometimes that means, can they express their emotions, that they're angry, that they're frustrated, that they're scared, that they're mad, and feel like it will be heard, that it will be taken in and considered on the bigger picture of things, not just ignored or feeling unsafe in your home to even share extreme emotions because mom and dad may be too stressed to handle it, or they have too many other things going on, or a million other scenarios, but that you feel like you can share things that you're struggling with.
So think about it. If you walk into your home court and the emotional safety is not there, and the positions that you want your players, your family to play aren't being filled, where's the lacking aspect of that? What I mean by that is, whose fault is that? Because let's break this down a little bit, right? Players, family, right? Everyone has their own positions, but then you've got these coaches and you've got these referees. Who are the coaches and the referees in a family, you think?
Often it's parents, it's referees, can be people even outside of the home.
Yeah.
Teachers, or, other people that kind of keep the ball in play, keep things going so that things are safe too, kind of run down, making sure the rules are being followed.
So if mom and dad, or whatever situation it is, partner, whatever it is, if you establish yourself as coaches and like you're calling plays, you're kind of huddling, you're taking the knees, you're, see something getting a little bit on the line. Hey, you're going to ride the pine for a little bit, your timeout, all that kind of stuff. Is that a good place for parents to be, or should they be players on the court with them?
I think it depends. It depends on the situation, but I think most of the time parents are going to be the coaches, the ones kind of calling the shots and around to address what's going on. But there may be times where they need to come in and like help.
Well, that's what a coach does, right? They come in and they show them how to run the plays, and they point out like maybe situations that could improve, and they give trust into the team captains on the court, and kind of like point out other players that they want to get more involved, and that's kind of your job. Now, the kids, and the people that are under that roof of yours, whatever positions they play, they play. Some might be the point guard, which is kind of be that person who points at all the problems. Hey, it's, did you see what the dog did? Or did you see what this kid did? And you have the team captains who kind of rally the troops, right? And you have the mascots, the ones that are just kind of like there to be fun and to hang out. We got one of those at our house. He's a hoot. And so it really is kind of cool. And some of those positions change. Sometimes one kid that's going to be the team captain out there calling the shots is maybe next week, going to be a little bit slow. And so, the next kid steps up and helps out. But what we've noticed to establish home court of our own was to allow the players, the kids, to communicate with each other, to communicate with us, and to sometimes say, hey, coach, hey, dad, that play you're running, that task you're giving me is dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what? Right. And hey, let me hear you out. We had this conversation last night with one of our old players there. And I'm like, do you realize that you never really get the word no? Like, we very rarely tell you no. And so when we ask you for more detail to give us more information on something, why are you getting so defensive? Because we're not saying that you don't know how to play the game. We're not saying, that what you want to do is outrageous. We want more detail. We want you to call the shots more. It was hard to get that through her head because she had her game plan. That's what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I'm like, let us know where you're passing the ball. Let us know, does that make sense?
Yeah. We need to know what's happening in your life. We want to be there and want to understand for sure.
So as you think about your home being built as a home team, keeping your home court like sacred to a certain degree, right? It also means that like when things go wrong and the family or the team loses, you all lose together.
Yeah.
Because there's been times when we've had some pretty sensitive stuff come up right before, and it always seems to happen right before some kind of family extravaganza. I remember I could almost bank on the fact that every time we had family pictures to be happening, someone would lose their flipping shiz. And I'm like, great. Now we got to go smile for this camera. And every time I look at this picture, I remember like the 2 minutes before this where I wanted to smack all your heads together. Right?
Yeah. You've said that exactly.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's the funniest thing, man. Because I'm like, why is it every time we have family pictures, someone loses their mind? Is it me?
It could be. And me. I do.
Yeah. And so, when that happens, we collectively lose together. And when we win together.
Yeah.
And the coolest part about that is the unilateral kind of movement that is made there. There are times when us coaches, the parents, we're going to make wrong calls.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make calls that suck. We made a call that we should pack up our family and move to St. George once. And that was an interesting call. And it disrupted quite a bit.
Rough for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we came back and we started on a winning streak. And so when you look at this into your own recovery, one of the hardest things is that you might have been the Dennis Rodman of your family, right? You might be labeled the worm, right? And the thing is that Dennis Rodman was an amazing player, hands down, one of the most amazing players that ever played. I mean, he played with the most legendary team that's ever been assembled. Yet he was kind of an outsider guy there.
Yeah.
He didn't march to the same beat that everybody else did.
Yeah.
He was super aggressive, and especially for the time period. Holy cow! Like this guy was intense. But he was also like leading in rebounds, and he had all kinds of other records that he broke. But you look at that kind of stuff, and then you come back and you integrate into that family system after having maybe some help, maybe some recovery, and do you continue to ride the bench? Do we say, hey, you have a history of running amok in this family, so you're going to be benched for a while?
Yeah.
Is that appropriate?
Probably not. I think a lot of times it's learning to recognize everyone is different. Number one, first off, we all can't act and respond to things in the exact same way, as much as moms and dads like that to be how it works, and learning to really enjoy and embrace the differences in all of our players on the team and all of the family members, that people have different talents, people have different abilities, and how can we enhance that by supporting curiosity, supporting whatever, that we can all learn to work together even with our differences rather than against each other because of our differences.
So to start this, it's like, okay, so where do you begin? If you're going to begin to build a dynasty team, where does it start? And this is the hardest thing, because usually, and you have to remember, precursor to all this, the reason you're pursuing recovery and healing in the first place is to reestablish and build relationships. When you peel back all the layers to why you're doing this, that is the only reason you're doing it. And I've had people say, oh, I'm doing it for this. It all boils back down to relationships, connections, falling back in love. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account, what kind of car you're driving, what kind of house you live in. None of that matters unless you have relationships. So if you think that that's the destination, what we're talking about today is crucial for your success. I would say if you're going to start this, if you're going to start building a sober support system, a home team, you're going to want to start with your family. Why would starting with your family be the most important part? And this is the thing, like me, I mean, my family was kind of like, blah,
Yeah.
But you're my family.
Yeah.
People that we bring into our lives can become family.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between that. It doesn't have to just be, like Marissa said, blood. It could be allowing people in to become, emotionally intimate with them. There's a big difference between sexual intimacy and emotional intimacy, right?
Oh, for sure.
One's physical, one's heartfelt.
Yeah, emotions.
And the emotion side of this. And that's a hard thing to do when you have a lot of family history that sucks.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I think I could do when I was, early on in my recovery is try to build a dynasty team with a dying franchise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do I mean by that?
Well, if you have to be able to assess how healthy, how emotionally safe is, maybe if you're starting with your biological family,
My family was the bad news bears, man. They were.
But you have to be able to assess it. Maybe there are areas that your family could help and support you, but other areas you need to kind of stay away and keep your boundaries. And so you have to be able to identify, where is it? I can turn to these family members for these needs, and I can turn to these family members for these needs. And these other needs that I have in my life and being able to be supported in my recovery, I need to find other players, because what I have right now, my resource isn't working. So it's being able to go out and choose and bring in those people into your life to be able to help you, which may be close friends, and it may be, like a trusted therapist or counselor or things like that. They can play other types of areas where somebody else is maybe not.
And it's a hard one, because there will be some family members that you would like to have on your team that do not want to play for you or with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. They can be free agents on the outside. We want to build you someone and a foundation of a team that family can kind of start to be the core of. Now, for instance, I say that, in order to get clean and sober, I had to walk away from my family, and I did 100%.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of a lie, because as I was doing that, I was also growing closer to you.
Yeah.
And so although the nuclear family I grew up with was no longer an option for me because of their own chaos and safety,
yeah.
I didn't do this alone. I got down to the bare bones of a team, so to speak, and I found you.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do this alone. My family began to be you and your siblings and your parents.
Well, and it started even with, we've discussed too, our friend Dawn that kind of took you under his wing, and you kind of had that support. And then you did start therapy and counseling, and that became a support for you. And then we started dating, and I became a support. And so you started building these other avenues of ways that you can have support, have accountability, have help when needed.
It's funny, because there's a movie that we watched years ago. I think it's called Moneyball. It's got Brad Pitt in it or something. Mm-hmm. And Brad Pitt decided to help build a dynasty team baseball. And I want to say it was the Red Sox. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And he wanted to build this franchise team, but he didn't want to do it just by getting like the biggest, baddest, fastest players. He started looking at their statistics and said, if we could build a team around mathematical statistics,
mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if they are the all-star, leader on the team. These people have specific talents in each area. And so we built this team very analytically.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I did in my recovery, if that makes sense. I started not saying, well, I would love to be close to this person or that person, but I went like, who's going to help make me better? Who's going to help me get to my next goal? If I can use someone's strength here, then I can start helping myself in other areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you started building the family system, it really was from scratch, and it was very intricate, and it was very precise, and it was very purposeful.
Yeah.
And so, starting with the nuclear family, the second is now that you have your family established, that's when you start allowing friends in.
Mm-hmm. Now,
this is an interesting thing, right? Because friends, they're a hoot, right? let's be honest. I remember years ago sitting, and this is years and years ago, we're talking circa 23 years ago, at an oil changing place. They used to have these things called magazines, because no one had cell phones at the time to be, and it was like Motor Trend or something.
Yeah.
And the back couple pages was all dedicated to 4x4 accidents. They had like awesome trucks that are up to their doors in mud. Some of them are on fire, one tipped over in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of these stories started with, my friend and I thought it would be a good idea. Or my friend and I were driving down, and it was funny. Every one of them started with my friend and I, or me and my friend, or me and my buddy. And I'm like, who the freak friends do you guys hang out with that this is the outcome?
So many,
And I'm like, and I wish I could have like grabbed my cell phone that didn't exist and take a picture of it to have it. But I thought, this is funny. I'm like, who are these friends? They're like, hey, I bet you can make it across that crevasse, right?
Always.
Hit the gas, Earl. And there it goes, right? So, I look at this kind of stuff and I'm thinking, friends, if you're going to bring friends into your home court, there's some boundaries that you've got to start setting too, because friends will always have your back to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this because you have those ride or die friends, right?
Yeah.
But they don't last as long as family.
Yeah.
And friends are super important to this. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. You need,
they can provide a unique perspective on your life and give you some outside perspective.
mm-hmm.
But with choosing friends, you've got to choose a support network that's going to strengthen you. We talk about this all the time. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you're surrounding yourself with friends, they have to be the top notch of the top notch.
Well, and often some of that comes with maturity. As you get older, you're able to assess and maybe when I was a teenager, I'm sure I didn't have any friends that I could call out or they could call me out.
Marissa, no friends?
But that you wouldn't just do stupid stuff together because no one would say, hey, what really? I don't think we should do that. Who is the voice of reason in a teenager's brain? I don't think there is a voice of reason really. But as you mature, you start being able to identify friends that maybe that can do that and that you would be able to do that for someone else. Like, yeah, that's great, but what do you think about this? And kind of helping you see something a little bit differently that you didn't see, And I think as we get older, we can do that. And so you can still have supportive friends that are good and good for you. But yeah, some of those friends that, you may be able to have a great fun time with, maybe aren't the safest to hang around with for too long, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny part about that too, though, is you talk about the youth and having young friends. When we're adults, those friendships are still very important.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those friendships are born out of the next category that you build your team around. That's your colleagues. I look at the people I've worked with, the people that I've been able to rub shoulders with in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
And I think of Bruce Miller, who I worked with for years. I worked with him for so long, and he was such a funny guy, and I loved him to death. And it was one of these things where we worked really well together, and but it was always this work relationship.
Yeah.
And it was these people at work,
a professional kind of relationship. Yeah,
absolutely. And like Bruce Chandler and some of the other guys, these guys were like friends, right? Mm-hmm. But they're colleagues too. But in order for me to kind of maintain, those relationships, I've had to surround myself even with great employees. And there's been some that have sucked, some micromanagers that are, I think, are the dumbest people that walk the face of this earth. And, we won't get into those guys, but they were not helping me establish my home team.
Yeah.
So these colleagues after your friends are kind of important too, because you do spend a lot of time with these people.
Yeah. In fact, last week we presented at the URTA conference, and I ran
What's that? What's the URTA conference?
The Utah Therapeutic Recreation Association.
There you go.
Anyway, I ran into some old friends of mine, a friend of mine, Nikki, that we worked together, oh my gosh, back in 97.
The year 1997.
1997. Yeah. I haven't seen her in a long time. But we became great friends. We, in fact, were roommates for a long time. We, hung out and did a lot of things with my family and her family, but we also had a professional relationship as well. And she was just a great person and a great person to have around and be with me.
Mm-hmm.
But you have them everywhere.
I look at that kind of stuff and I think, those are interesting. In fact, you'll probably spend more time with your colleagues than you will actually with your friends, and almost hours that you do with your family.
Very true.
So surrounding yourself with people that you're employed by is actually more important than we might think. Until you said that, I didn't really even kind of think about that, but we spend a grundle of time with people that we work with.
Yeah.
Why? Because we want to spend as much time with our families. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but we have to, right?
Yeah.
We choose to spend that time with colleagues so that we can have the funding to survive with the family back there. So it's kind of a funny.
Yeah. In fact, I had a lady reach out the other day because a family member of hers is paroling from prison, and she's super concerned about, what kind of plan they need to have in place to create a good home team. So I brought up how, what kind of job history does he have? Where is he going to look for a job? Because that is so important to be able to identify, not just I need a job because I need money. I'm getting out of jail or prison and I need to make money. You just choose anywhere. It's so important to be able to choose an employer and, an employment that your colleagues are going to be good people to be around. And oftentimes a lot of people in recovery have experience with construction. So the construction industry, sadly, is filled with a lot of addicts and a lot of people relapsing. And is it a safe place to be? And that can be the downfall because you spend so much time with them.
Remember that time we were working at the youth treatment center and they were building a new building on campus? And I watched this. I don't know if you remember this, but I was walking out of a door and I look up and I see this roofer fall off the roof, plunk. And I'm like, what the crap? I ran over there and some other guys ran over there. And he's fine. He didn't look fine, but he was very drunk. And I was like, dude, what the crap, man? Like, we have to now occupy this building. So if you're coming in intoxicated and you're swinging a hammer, like, did you get enough nails in there? Like,
how good is this being?
Was it a Friday afternoon? You decided, hey, you know what? Just put one nail in there. That'll hold it. Let's get out of here. Like, dude, come on. Now, not knocking the industry, but it turns because of the stress and the craziness and the chaos and the deadlines and the pursuit of perfection that typically bleeds into that kind of stressful performance. And so it makes a lot of sense that way.
Yeah.
The next home team you don't want to overlook to acquire is like neighbors and acquaintances. Now, these are people that you'll come in contact with here and there, but like people you have to cohabitate with.
Yeah.
Neighbors. I mean, we had a neighbor in Orem that was an absolute nightmare. And, it's an important thing to have. And all my Orem neighbors, you know who I'm talking about. It's not you if you're listening to this, it's that other one. It was finally to the point where we're living next to, what do you call that? Avery salvage yard. Right. And I'm like, we're done. Like we got to go.
Yeah. You can have the best house, the most perfect house for you and your family. But if your neighbors or neighborhood is a pain, it can ruin everything. It can ruin everything. So it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's such a key.
Yeah. And for me, I'm like, I've spent a lot of emotional, like investment, like being upset with this next door. I'm done with that. And it's one of those things where, the olive branch was always tried to be extended, but it was like always kind of like pushed back and like, no. So you've got to be careful with that stuff too. In fact, when we bought our new house, 4 years ago, one of the first things we did was look at the neighbors.
The neighborhood. Yeah. Before we even, we got close to okay, this is a house we think we want to put in an offer. And we drove around the neighborhood multiple different times. We tried to attend the church in the area, who's around. And you can't get everything, but what we knew, you're buying the neighborhood. You're not just the home.
The last part of a social network you want to build, sober support system you want to build is your social media and online groups. Now, these are important, but they are last for a reason. They're not, these are your fans. These are the people in the stands. These aren't the people that you can pass the ball to. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing now far too often the fact that someone will post something and they'll get 500 likes from 500 people. They have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And so, Marissa, it's kind of a funny thing when you think about it. There's this, they call it the Dunbar number. And it says the Dunbar research suggests that our brain really can't hold connections with people like we think they do. So let's say you've got 1.5 million followers on Twitter or whatever. Yeah. That really doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Because you can have no more close connections with people that exceed 150 people online like that, right? But Dunbar says you can only truly have 15 relationships that are sound,
like the closest,
that are close to you.
Wow.
Think about that for a minute. That's a hard one when you start thinking about that. It says that our capacity outside of 15 close people
is a stretch.
It's a stretch.
Not really more than 150.
Yeah. And so, that's what makes it hard.
Makes sense.
That's what makes it hard in positions like what we have, in positions with like bigger families and stuff. We can have upwards of 150 connections, which, I think we exceed that, but close relationships.
But as for like a real good support system or home team, you're 15.
And this includes your family. This includes your family, your children, your relatives. So you start thinking about this, you're like, wow, what kind of person can I be outside of that? I mean, it takes a real stretch. And this has happened quite a bit with me and you, when the positions that we have, we have a very large relationship-based program here.
Yeah.
And I can't do it all myself, and if any of you have not watched Ted Lasso, I highly recommend you guys get behind that on Apple TV.
So good.
So good. And if you want to look at a home team that he comes in and builds, this is exactly the one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a situation where a very close colleague that Ted was coaching with got upset because he was under the impression that Ted didn't give him enough attention.
Yeah.
And man, that's happened to me many times on this team.
All the time.
Where as much as I'd love to spend this quality time with everybody, I can't.
Yeah.
I have my own limitations. That's why we ask for, like the Coach Kinneys and the Coach Earls and the Coach Johnsons and
That's
Coach
why
Jeds.
We have our peer support and we have our coaches and our team captains, because that helps make our support for addict athlete bigger. But yeah, it all can't be Coach Blu has the connection. I mean, on our Facebook group, we have 2,000 people. Our Facebook page is, almost 9,000. Sorry, we can't connect with everyone. We wish we could, but we can't. So it's within our environment. It's within our team that we have to support each other. So it becomes a great foundation to build something larger rather than something straight up.
And the cool thing about that, though, is that when we're together, whether you come to a meeting, we're talking on the podcast, we're having a therapy session, I'm there with you. Does that make sense? We're there. And I watched Max Hall do this on the field last weekend after he was injured and then got mauled by like all these spectators who had really no clue of the amount of pain he was in or the situation that had kind of kicked him in the calf, so to speak, right?
Jeez, yeah.
And so as Max was sitting there and as he was kind of going through all this and you could tell he was in excruciating pain, he knew that he was there, so he needed to be present. And so each person that came up and had some contact with him, it was very personal.
Yeah.
Right. And so I thought, that's kind of the ticket there. Although, we can't maintain tons of relationships, when you're in the presence of someone, you want to feel like that's you're being heard, you're being listened to, you're important.
Yeah.
We can do that with an astronomical amount of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be rushed or doesn't have to be awkward or strange. And so that's what I truly think that rebounds me. The reason why all this is support, listeners, is because building a sense of belonging means that you are establishing like those unilateral kind of positions that are going to help strengthen your recovery, the foundations of what you're building.
Yeah.
You will have a reduction in stress, obviously. Yeah. Because you'll have people that have your back. We talked about that with Max. Max yesterday was talking a little bit about like the support system and how stress relieving it's been, which means that now he can open himself up to other forms of stress he didn't know was there, like having to ask for help. And
well, and I remember him saying, like just how scary it is to talk about where he's at, but then he is able to say, if I'm struggling, like that's mostly for an addict, that's like the scariest thing to do. Like addicts, part of that life is to be secretive, to be hidden, to be unconnected. And so when you start looking into recovery and you start making these connections, to be open and honest and vulnerable is really scary. It's totally against the way you're used to living. But he was saying how he's able to talk to, first, he always tells somebody, and it's usually his wife, Kenzie, and says, hey, I'm just feeling off. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm a little more edgy. I'm whatever. And just saying that.
I should do that more often.
Yeah.
It'd be almost a daily occurrence, huh?
Yeah.
Every time I wake up in the morning, hey, I'm off.
I'm off today. But he said just being able to say that is like a release, and it like gets something off his back that he's been carrying. And sometimes he doesn't even recognize that it's there until he says it. And then she can just be, okay, well, what can I do to support you? How can I help?
It's a really cool thing. I like that a lot.
But it is against the addict mentality. So it is something that has to be practiced. It has to be developed, and being willing to say, hey, I need to reach out. I need to, tell my wife I'm struggling, but maybe reach out and say, hey, can we go for a drink with a friend and go out to dinner? Because I just need to talk, and I need to have multiple people I talk to, not just one.
Because what it does is it gives you that emotional support that you don't really want to ask for, but if someone knows, can offer it.
Yeah.
And, that improves kind of that self-worth and self-esteem because you feel like you belong again. So, it's a crucial aspect of this, and we've barely scratched the surface, but, in order to maintain your forward progression of recovery, this is a crucial part. Team Addict Athlete does a great job at this because we are not just a sober gym. We are not just an outlet for sober recreation. We are a therapeutic counsel type program that builds relationships that most programs will tell you, stay away from for a year into your recovery. It's impossible. It's impossible not to have relationships.
Yeah.
So how about you become coached into positive relationships?
Well, and through our assessments, we've started some assessments over the last year. And one of the questions is what is the biggest benefit of addict to athlete to you? And without fail, number one has been support system and connection and relationships.
Yeah.
And we've done this assessment now 3 or 4 times, and that consistently has been the highest. There's quite a few of them, and they can multiple choice and choose, but those connections are huge. And it is something that's outside of, we have our weekly meetings, but you build those connections by doing the workout outside or coming to a service project we do, or another event. Like we have a race coming up, a Break the Cycle relay, and it's being able to do those things outside that build stronger relationships so that you can create and strengthen your home team.
And even if you're out there and you don't have a team yet, let's say you're a free agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of roaming out there in the ethos. The minute you start putting in work, the minute you start doing something for you, and what I mean by that is something's going to help bring a little bit more emotional stability, some awareness, some victory,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your family system will start to notice immediately. They'll be like, hey, I saw this picture on Facebook. You like running a race? What was that?
Yeah.
Or who are these people that you're surrounding yourself with every Tuesday? What's going on? And like it or not, people will watch you and they'll more often than not invite you in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a cool thing too, because now your actions are producing more than your words did.
Yeah.
And so I would say, show up, come invest in a part of the team.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to be a world-class athlete. You could be a couch potato.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We had a guy just wander in here this morning saying he'd heard about the team, has been told he needs to come to a meeting. He's been a little afraid and just kind of peeked his head in today. And we had some great conversations with him, new in recovery and just wanting to do something different. And I know that's scary. That's really scary to do, but you have to start getting out of that comfort zone to be able to start stretching.
Absolutely. And we'd love to show you around. If you guys are in that position and you're kind of hesitating, come stop by the facility here, come meet the staff, come meet the athletes,
Mm-hmm.
Start building your home team. So, listeners, it's an important aspect. We have a lot more of these kind of topics backlogged on our podcast. You can jump on addicttoathlete.org. Marissa's categorized all of our podcasts on there. Great resource. Just go on there and you can hit play and listen. Invite your friends and family to listen too. It's a great way to kind of get this message going. And a way to truly do it is to show up. Yeah. Come be part of the, register for the No One Left Behind or the proxy runs. It's a great way to kind of show your support at the same time, build these family systems. So anything left in your chamber there, Marissa?
No, not that I can think of.
Awesome. Athletes, we couldn't do this without you. So we'd love to have you guys, again, pop in here, swing by. We've got chapters all throughout the state of Utah. Addicttoathlete.org is your one-stop shop for everything that's happening. Again, Patreon subscribers, patreon.com/addicttoathlete. You got tons of great deep content. The Patreon content's much deeper than this. And so if you really want some raw rooted principles of recovery, jump on the Patreon. We'd love to have you be a subscriber there.
A lot of bonus episodes that you can't miss.
Absolutely. So athletes, it's always a pleasure. Keep these questions coming in. Like I said, we had several people that were asking about like how to help family members. That's what this home team's all about. We have more information.
We have a whole page on our website for resources for family members of an addict. So go on there and look them up.
Check it out. And so athletes, again, so it's been a pleasure. But until next time, please continue to turn that mess of addiction into the message of your